אנחנו גם מכירים, יש את הראשון, את האחד בניסן, שזה היה ראש שנה של השנה התקציבית או שנת חמאס, כמו שהיו אומרים פעם. ויש גם את הראשון באלול, שהיה שנת המעשר לבהמות למשל. 4 ראשי שנים טובים במשנה, אבל אני חושב שלכולנו, במובן מסוים, עברה שנה עם הרבה תאריכים והרבה ציוני דרך שאימא ואישה וסבתא הייתה חסרה בימי הולדת, בחגים, ביום נישואים, ואנחנו מגיעים לשנה הראשונה שהיא אולי השנה שאנחנו לא יודעים איך להתמודד איתה, והנה אנחנו כאן אחרי שנה באותו מקום, באותו זמן, ואנחנו נקדיש כמה מילים לזכרה. אנחנו נקרא מספר פרקי תהילים ונרכיב את השם שלה דרך האותיות של השם שלה, ולו היינו יכולים להביא את כל הפסוקים ואת כל המקורות של המסורת היהודית, כל זה לא היה מספיק לעומת המילים של המשפחה יש לומר. אני חושב שאתם רוצים כמובן להגיד כמה מילים עצמכם.
Would you like to start? Judy's first time she came to Israel was in 1950, 2 years after the state was established. She came on one of the maiden flights of El Al Airlines, and it was a flight that left New York and made about 5 or 6 stops on the way to getting to Tel Aviv. Of course, we needed to stop for gas. She told me that the crew of the plane did not have any Israelis on it because they didn't have any Israeli pilots or crew members. So the plane was flown by Americans who essentially had learned to fly during World War II. An incident happened that she thought was very funny and repeated many times, and that was when they took off from one of the places along the way. After they were in the air 15 or 20 minutes, the pilot said he had to return because something was not right, and the pilot returned. Since for many of the passengers it was the first time they flew, that made them extremely nervous. When the plane took off a second time and also had to return, then the passengers formed a committee to meet with the pilot. And they met with the pilot and they demanded a new airplane. The pilot told them El Al doesn't have another airplane. And anyway, I wouldn't be flying this one if I thought it was dangerous. I have a wife and children in the United States. The rest of the trip went as planned. I met Judy about 3 years after that. She had just come back from spending a year in Kibbutz Kfar Blum in a work-study program sponsored by Habonim. And to say that she was a Zionist at that time would not be quite correct. She was, as the expression in Yiddish would say, she was a verbrennte Zionist, a burning Zionist. And that stayed with her throughout her life. As a matter of fact, when we were raising our children, and she would periodically give little lectures or sermons about Israel and about Zionism, they began to call her Mrs. Herzl, which she did not like at all, and I thought was quite funny. For the next 30-some plus years that we were in the United States, she worked in a Zionist organization in the United States called Habonim, called the Pioneer Women, whose main function was to raise funds and send the money back to Na'amat in Israel to support their daycare centers. And through this work, she became a very, very good organizer and a very good public speaker, and they soon put her on the board of directors, national board of directors of Pioneer Women. And she went around speaking and organizing things. I'd like to tell just about 3 things that occurred that were interesting. When we were living in Washington, D.C., she organized an end-of-year fundraiser that was held at the Shoreham Hotel, which was the fancy hotel in Washington, D.C. And because it was in Washington, a lot of people in the audience who had come to the luncheon had connections to politics. Some of them were congressmen, some of them were congressmen's wives. There was even the wife of the Supreme Court Justice who came. And her real accomplishment was by using contacts. The speaker at that fundraiser was Hubert Humphrey, who was Vice President of the United States. Judy also spoke at that fundraiser, and shortly afterwards somebody asked her for a copy of the speech, and we learned a few days later that the speech was published in the U.S. Congressional Record because a congressman there presented it before the U.S. Congress, and so it was published in the records of the U.S. Congress. From there we moved to Trenton, just outside of Trenton, and Judy now found herself in a place where she knew no one, but she did not know a soul who lived in that area, and she was unhappy and complaining and calling her friends and crying. It was just not a happy experience. But Pioneer Women National Office knew what to do. They called her, stop complaining and form an organization there. She says, I can't, I don't know anybody. You will figure out how. And she figured out how. When we left that area, she had one of the largest chapters on the East Coast with well over 100 women members. During that period of time, she also studied to get her master's degree in guidance and counseling. And she became very good at guidance and counseling. When we went to Israel, naturally she contacted Dana and said, by the way, throughout this period of time, she constantly told me, at some point during our marriage, we have to go to Israel because I have to see what it's like. I want to know what it's like to be there. Finally, that period came. We came to Israel. She approached Naamat and said, I'm not looking for a job. I don't want to be paid. I want to volunteer at one of your centers to do guidance and counseling to either young children or young parents because I'm skilled and I've been trained to do that. The answer she got from Naamat was polite, but not very much. Essentially, one of the answers was, you do us more good if you went back to the United States and continued to send us money. The second answer she got was, well, wait a minute, if you're going to volunteer and we don't have to pay you, it means we won't have to pay somebody else. That's not good. Judy came home and she told me what happened, and she said, I'm beginning to understand socialism. She continued her interest, and eventually when she retired, she followed the news very closely. She got first of all, she studied Hebrew at least once a week throughout that college, never content with her knowledge of the language. She subscribed to 3 newspapers at that time. She read diligently every day, Yediot Ahronot, Haaretz, and the International Herald. And there were times when the news was not too great in Israel, and I would come home and she'd meet me with a smile on her face and say, I dragged you to Israel because I wanted to see what it was like. And now that I see what it's all about, sometimes I can shoot myself in the head. She wouldn't like if I told that story at all. But I have to say that to the end, she was a fervent Zionist.
יש קצת פחות מאבא שלי. כתבתי כמה מילים. קודם כל, תודה רבה לכל אלה שהגיעו לכאן. באמת, כשאבא שלי התחלנו לחשוב על אירוע, באמת אפשר מי יגיע בכלל. אבל באמת הגיעו הרבה אנשים, וזאת עדות לעובדה שאמא שלי נגעה ללב להרבה אנשים. אמא שלי הייתה אישה מאוד חברתית, עם הרבה חום אישי ואכפתיות, והיא מאוד התעניינה באנשים. כל מישהו שהיה פוגש איתה שואל אותו על שאלות, מה שלומם וזה, באמת הייתה זוכרת כל פרט ופרט, גם לאחרי שנים שאתה פגש לא זוכרת. וזה ממש, על כולם היא הייתה חברתית. אנשים זה קרובי משפחה, חברים של חברים, אנשים שעבדו בחנויות, או אנשים שסתם יהיו שהיא פגשה ברחוב, כולם היא תמיד התעניינה. היא תמיד ידעה ליצור קשר אישי עם אנשים, ואנשים נהנו ממנה. גם רובכם יודעים שאימא שלי מאוד אהבה לארח אנשים אצלנו בבית. היא אוכל אין ספור ארוחות לקבוצות גדולות של אנשים, והיא הייתה מכינה את כל האוכל בעצמה, והייתה שמה דגש על איך הכל נראה, וזה תמיד היה הצלחה, תמיד אנשים נהנו מהארוחות האלה, כמעט תמיד, כמה פעמים שלא, אבל זה היה יותר, לא בגללה היא פשוט אישיות שהתנגדו אחד עם השני. היא גם הייתה אורחת אנשים שהגיעו ממש בבית, אנשים שהגיעו מחו"ל, היא הייתה מתעקשת שישנו אצלנו, אם זה חברים או קרובי משפחה. בארצות הברית בכלל אירחנו המון, היו מארחים קבוצות גדולות של ילדים מתנועת הנוער הבונים. אני זוכר כמה פעמים שאירחו איזה 30-40 אנשים בבית, גרנו בבית גדול, בית גדולה של מרתף, ליד גג, אנשים בכל מיני מקומות. היא הייתה מאוד פעילה בארגון נעמת, כפי שאבא שלי סיפר. בארץ היא עבדה בתור עובדת סוציאלית, הייתה בפנימיית אחוזת ילדים בחיפה, ואחר כך ברמת הדסה בצבעון. עבודה לא פשוטה, ילדים ממשפחות מאוד בעייתיות, והייתה פוגשת איתם אחד על אחד, משחקת איתם משחקים, הכל במטרה לגרום להם לדבר, ולדעתי לרוב היא הצליחה ליצור קשר איתם.